first things first. It is a Monday morning. I'm Jenna Wolf. That's the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. This is Nick Wright.
Do you guys know what today is?
What's the day after the NBA season ended?
It is, well, 3 days after the NBA season ended. However, it is our 200th show.
Oh, get out of here.
Well, 100 show milestone.
I have a lot of moisturizing cream on my
No
hands.
problem, Jenna. I'm used to your hands being a little greasy. It's good.
That is weird.
Congratulations,
I can cash in my ticket then. I won the bet. One of my buddies had bet me significant amount of money that I wouldn't be able to make it 200 shows with Nick. I made it. I told him I was going to make it.
There you go. Absolutely.
Very nicely done. I will say congratulations to both of you, and I apologize to you. After 9 months of me being on the show bragging about how much I love volleyball and how good I'm at volleyball, I got a text from CC inviting me to a volleyball tournament, to which I responded.
National volleyball tournament.
Yeah. What did I respond?
Silence.
Silence. Yeah, I think you got a text and then you got a FaceTime. I think you got a lot, and it was like, oh, sorry,
no,
I didn't have my phone.
I was at the pool with my little one, so I apologize for that. Next time that tournament comes down to the Tribeca, New York City area, I will be there.
Harper and Quinn, we're going to fact check that after the show.
Fact check that. All right. Let us chat some basketball. It is the Monday after the last NBA game of the season.
A lot of pretty people there, Jenny. You missed them.
Okay, that's on me. You're right. Because I'm all about the pretty people. The time for dust to settle and for baseball to take center stage. Oh, but wait, we are nowhere near done with how this NBA season ended. Over the weekend, Friday, the Warriors won their third NBA title in 4 years, sweeping the Cavs. 5 minutes after that, LeBron James comes to the press conference podium with a soft cast on his shooting hand. Reports surfaced he punched a whiteboard after the Game 1 loss, after the frustration. So let's discuss this from all angles. Chris, I'll start with you. How much do you blame LeBron for hurting himself and, as an extension of that, the team?
Well, Jenna, you said it all right there. It's something that's self-inflicted. It's something that with a little more self-control. So I'm going to tell you that I'm a little disappointed in LeBron. I'm not disappointed that he acted out and had some type of emotion, because being in an NFL locker room, seeing NBA players, knowing that emotion is a huge part of sport, but you are responsible for your body. Denny Green used to tell us that. Like, when you leave this office, if you're in a certain condition, if you're injured, I expect you to be back tomorrow morning for treatment. But if you're not, I expect you to be in the same condition tomorrow when you arrive. Now, I would say in my years in the NFL, I've seen more things punched. I have seen things thrown, and I've just never been about that. I've never said anything to the people. I just didn't think that those things were necessary. And this takes me back to this first of four series with Golden State, when Kyrie Irving gets hurt. It's like, man, if the game hadn't gone to overtime. Remember that? That was the first time they played.
He was already playing on a gimpy knee. If people don't remember, he was on a minutes restriction in the conference finals. He was supposed to be on a minutes restriction in the NBA finals. It was a close game. They had a chance to win it. He plays above the minutes restriction. Then it goes to overtime. He keeps playing. And in overtime, he breaks his kneecap.
Right. So if the Cavs, if they're able to close it out, they're with a rebound or something else, or a timeout, or a dish out to LeBron, and LeBron finishes off Golden State in game number 1. It's a huge what if. And this is what happens in sports. When you don't have the type of conclusion, you start going back and saying, okay, well, what if this would have happened? Ultimately, LeBron is responsible. Regardless of what anyone else would say, LeBron is responsible. He's responsible for his own emotion. He's responsible for how he reacts. Now, for me, I'm a little surprised, because LeBron, for the most part, he shoots basketball right-handed, but he eats and he writes left-handed. To me, if he was going to throw a punch, I thought he would have thrown a punch with his left hand, which would have affected his off-shooting hand. Now, it's fairly obvious that he had some type of injury. Well, how is it obvious? Because LeBron is not one of the superstars or players we've ever seen in sports that ever made any type of excuse about an injury. He's coming off in his 15th season playing all 82 games. Now, were there games he could have sat? Yes. Did he ever make any type of excuses? No. So I know the injury was significant. And him having the brace on after game number 4 in the press conference, that right there is even more proof that, because he wouldn't wear the brace, and they wouldn't just make up this story. I do believe in him that much.
Well, and there's a great side.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And there's a great side-by-side that I think that was put out, I saw it on Twitter, of LeBron's left hand versus his right hand in game 4. And his left hand, you can see his veins, you can see those tendons that run up. His right hand is clearly swollen. I can tell you this. with utter certainty from talking to people after Game 4. LeBron did not want this information out there. LeBron's people were not the ones that leaked this information. LeBron was more comfortable with the narrative being he didn't play that great of a Game 4 than the narrative being he injured himself. So it not only is like, did LeBron not want this as an excuse? He didn't want this out there. The information was out there before he put on that soft cast, and then once it was out there, he ended up wearing the soft cast. But I was told he wouldn't have worn it otherwise. But to answer your question, how much do I blame him? Listen, man, you don't get a pass for a self-inflicted injury. And when you're LeBron, you don't really, part of LeBron's path to being considered the greatest player ever, one of the first pieces of information I use when I make that argument is his durability and longevity and the seemingly imperviousness to injury he has over every other player.
Yes.
So if his performance is hindered by an injury, much less an injury that didn't happen on the court, but happened off the court, of course that's a black mark. Of course that's a negative. Like, there is no... Now, you can spin it the other way, which is even after the injury, guy averaged almost a triple-double in the finals, shot over 50%. He played really well with a broken hand, but not nearly good enough for the team to be able to compete for the title. And your what-ifs... I can go down a list of them. There's some great what-ifs that this now gets added to.
So he's cognizant enough to know that he doesn't want the injury out there as an excuse. He doesn't want anyone using any excuses for himself. But yet, like, where was that cognizance, or where was that, like, frame of mind when he's punching a whiteboard out of sheer frustration, knowing that you might need your hand to play 3 or potentially 4 or 5 more basketball games?
It is the reality, Jenna. And obviously he has a great deal of self-control, but LeBron told us in between Game 1 and Game 2, that would be your answer. Well, what is it, Chris? It's one of the biggest losses he ever had in his life. It affected him in that kind of way that he did punch something, and he told us that. A lot of times players don't tell us the truth. Oh, no, it's another loss. We're going to move on to game number 2. But that's the only reasoning behind it. He would qualify that as one of the greatest losses, which his overall reaction was played out with him punching the whiteboard.
And the part of that game that he keeps saying taken from us, he was not punching, again, according to the people I've talked to that are as close to LeBron as you can get to. It was not about JR's mistake. It was not about
he wasn't disappointed with
I think he was disappointed with all of them, but the part that he was furious about was the call. The overturned call. Right. That's the part that he...
That gets lost.
That's the part that he makes the point on. I thought I read that play better than any play I'd read in my career. He also, or at least people around him, agree with the point I made, which was it was an illegal review.
Yes.
That it wasn't just a missed call, but the referees had to go outside of the bounds of the rules to review it. So you talk about what-ifs. There are great what-ifs in NBA history. What if the Thunder never trade James Harden? What if the Thunder don't blow a 3-1 lead to the Warriors and Durant doesn't leave? But just refereeing-based what-ifs. Man, what if a phantom, what they believe is a phantom call, is not called on Bill Laimbeer at the end of the '88 finals on Kareem when the Pistons are up 3-2? Then Magic Johnson's 4-5 in the finals, and the Pistons potentially have a 3-peat instead of a 2-peat. What if in 1994... first year without Michael Jordan, when it's 2-2 in the Eastern Conference semifinals, Hugh Hollins doesn't make an absurd foul call on Scottie Pippen on Hubert Davis? Do the Bulls win a title without Michael Jordan? What if in the 2002 Western Conference Finals, when the Kings are up 3-2 on the Lakers don't shoot 27 fourth-quarter free throws in order to tie that series? Like, there are some referee-based what-ifs that we see the butterfly effect on. And what if this call is not overturned, and then the Cavs win, and LeBron doesn't break his hand, and he's coming off the best playoff game of his life? Like, there's a lot of what-ifs that now led to a broken hand and a sweep.
As a gambling man, that's hard for you to... You can't really buy into it. We're all about it's all about what-ifs. You think the series could have been different had he not broken his hand?
The series wouldn't have been different as far as the result. Now, how many games they would have played, I think, would have been different. But ultimately, Golden State would have gotten their 3rd title in 4 years. But from another sports perspective, we saw Tom Brady play with a bad hand in a playoff game. and he still was able to get the job done. And that's the difference, sometime with some of the greatest of the greats. How much pain can they play with? And that's what we saw Tom Brady. Tom Brady didn't make any excuses. LeBron didn't try to make any excuses, but there was a series of games. And if he would have if there was only a one game after that, game number 2, then we wouldn't even would have known about it.
Well, and what I will just say is this. I think the Warriors would have won this series no matter what. Going into it, I said Warriors in 5. You said Warriors in 4. We thought the Warriors were a heavy favorite. But if after game 1, the Cavs have stolen home court and LeBron is playing, he was playing at the highest level of his career going into the NBA Finals.
Now, he wouldn't have 51.
He would have had 49.
Yes.
It would have been 49. It was 49-8-8 where he was sitting going, if they have won that game, we are talking about this being a long series and potentially the greatest moment of LeBron's career. Instead, it turns into as short of a series as you can get and arguably the second worst moment of his career. That's the punch of the whiteboard and the overturned call.
All right, we will get to all of this from the Warriors' perspective as well. Coming up, how will this Golden State dynasty be remembered in NBA history? That's next. First things first. We're going to get to the Warriors dynasty in a second, but first, Dustin Johnson holing out for the Eagle on 18 to win the St. Jude Classic yesterday. DJ returns to number 1 in the world. Good news, he won. Bad news, no one that's ever won the week before has ever won.
Yeah, you see that right there, that arc on that ball right there, Nick? That's what you call a confused ball. Well, what is that? Ball don't go left, it don't go right, well, it just goes straight.
An Eagle on 18 to win the tournament?
Oh, no, he was on fire. Cruised through the front 9, shot even par, but hit the turbo on hole number 12.
Guys, check this out.
Stop.
Young baller, dropping the D. Textbook crossover. Future little Kyrie here in the making. What?
Oh, no. We got to blur out that little man's face. The defender. That ain't fair to do a youth like that,
So
see?
little.
Man, that ain't the kid's fault. That's his dad's fault. Man, your dad ain't no good athlete.
Hey.
Oh, my goodness. He got a nice haircut, though.
We're just running. We're playing the kid's
That was a mean
dad's not
crossover
good
right there.
athlete.
Yeah,
All right,
well,
get
it ain't the
excited,
kid's
guys.
fault.
Here we go. Brazil taking on Austria in a World Cup warm-up match. Neymar destroys the defender, finishes the goal. Don't forget, we kick off Thursday on Fox and FS1. It's all going down.
So excited. This is big news for Brazil, though. Neymar being injured, now back playing. He was in question headed into the World Cup.
That's why this highlight's so important. It's not, I mean, listen, Neymar is one of the 4 best soccer players alive, so the goal's great. But there was worry after he got hurt in this Paris Saint-Germain game a few months ago if he was going to be available for the World Cup. We now know he is. He's one of the 3 biggest players in the world right now.
You guys are awesome.
We follow sports, Jenna Wolf.
That's it. What's up? Back to the Golden State Warriors. So on paper, in the history books, and at times on the court, their 4-game sweep over the Cavs seemed effortless. They have now won back-to-back NBA titles and their 3rd in 4 seasons. Kevin Durant won his 2nd straight Finals MVP, and if a dynasty wasn't already born, it certainly is now. CeCe, how will history remember this Warriors dynasty, which doesn't appear to be ending anytime soon?
Regardless if you don't like the Warriors, you do like the Warriors, you have to be fair with them. And you have to compare them, I would say, to 2 or 3 teams that I've seen. That was the Lakers team with Kareem and Magic, worthy, and the Bulls team. And I would say this team. Those are the 3 best teams that I've seen, I'll say, in the last 30 years. So what they've accomplished, and I won't even discuss how they got there. Well, Kevin Durant came after 2 of them. But I believe that right there, their legacy will be attached to the end of it. Right now, they're one of the 3 best teams that's ever played the game with the collection of stars and the talent that they have. You can compare them. You could go roster, you can go coach, like you could break down organizations, and I think that the Warriors, they would be right there. I think there are some teams more talented. I thought the Lakers and Kareem and them were a little more talented, especially their bench than them. And then, of course, when you have Michael Jordan, you have to consider him because he had the run, and he was Michael Jordan. He never lost in the finals. So I think those 3 different, in the last 30 years for me, those are the 3 best teams I've seen.
All right, so I agree this is absolutely one of the best teams we've ever seen, maybe the best team we've ever seen. But I do not think this is a dynasty yet because this is a different team than went to the first 2 NBA finals. So in order, the dynasty has to be who are your best players, and they have to be consistent throughout. That's why it's Magic and Kareem with the Lakers when they went to 9 NBA Finals and when they won 5 rings. Scotty and MJ, you're overlooking one, I think, or maybe you don't elevate them to that level. Kobe and Shaq, when they went to those 3, when they went to 4, but they won 3 in a row.
Right. I just thought the first Lakers team. I didn't want to have 2 Lakers teams in there.
Sure, fair enough. So, so to me, this will be a dynasty if they stay together. But you're not a dynasty when you've won 2 rings. And the Kevin Durant Warriors have won 2 rings.
Wait, you think in 20 years people are going to remember that Durant wasn't there on the first one? They're going to be like, oh, wait, wasn't Kevin Durant? No, he was.
Of course, first of all, yes, absolutely, they will know that Kevin Durant was
We'll
not
have
there
the end of the story then, so I think that it will either change the number of years, but that's what we'll do to make sure.
You look overall and say this Golden State team minus Kevin Durant.
I just don't.
Well, this is the thing. I think you're making an honest point. If they don't win anymore, this is all we have.
Correct.
But then Nick would be right.
If they don't win anymore, it's not a dynasty. Now, 3 out of 4 would have been if it was Steph, Clay, Draymond. But when the best player is added midway through, you have to reset the dynasty clock. Like, now, if you want to say organizationally, but I don't think when...
I think you make a great point, and I haven't heard that. I mean, you have to reset it because you're right. Their best player.
Their best player. Like if KD hadn't been this good and Steph was still the
it was somewhat like
force,
Dwayne Wade, even though it was separated. Dwayne Wade, like his championships with LeBron,
are totally separate.
Totally separate.
And so like it's to me the reason the Spurs were looked at over such a long stretch of time, even though they never won back-to-back, was their best player was the same every title until the very last one. Like by then, Duncan was a supporting player. But when the Spurs won in 99, 03, 05, 07, that was a dynasty, even though they never won back-to-back because the best player, the coach, were consistent throughout.
And the team kind of grew organically. They didn't take stars from other teams. They took role players and or drafted and developed their own players.
And this isn't, listen, I was wrong about the Warriors a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when I said they should have stood pat. I thought it was the greatest team I'd ever seen that won 73 games. They came this close to winning and back-to-back NBA Finals. I said I wouldn't have changed anything. Obviously, that was laughable. Kevin Durant going there is the ultimate cheat code. I was dead wrong about that. And I do think it might be the most talented team I've ever seen. But back-to-back titles is not a dynasty. And 3 out of 4 is only a dynasty if it's the same people involved. Like, they will be a dynasty, I believe, because I think they will win either next year or the next 2 years, or they could rip off an unbelievable run here. But you can't add your best player midway through and then say, but we get the credit dynastically from the first 2.
Wouldn't that be the case if Kevin Durant was light years above everyone else on the team? But can't you make a case that Steph and Kevin Durant are for the most part fairly on par, that Steph could easily be the superstar on this team and you're adding
Sure, but not in the NBA Finals they haven't been. In the regular season, you can make an argument for either one. In the finals,
the guy that got the MVP,
both times,
we added him.
Right, and he was clearly their best guy last year, and I thought he was their best guy except for in one quarter and in Game 4 this year.
You would have a strong argument if they had split, and especially maybe if Steph had gotten the first one.
Okay.
But now with KD, being clearly, when you're playing against the best player in the world in LeBron, it has stood out that KD and LeBron are the 2 best players. And in the series, because he was on the winner, KD was awarded the trophy as far as the MVP.
I mean, when we talk about dynasties in sports, I know the organization, we call it the Bulls dynasty or whatever, but we are talking about the star players. We talk about the Yankees in the late 90s. Jenna, Jeter, Pudge, Bernie Williams, right? Like I said, Posada, pardon me. And Mariano Rivera on the latter half of that.
Yvonne wanted to be on that team.
I know. Like when we talk about the Lakers, we are talking about Kareem and Magic, and then we're talking about Shaq and Kobe. We're talking about the Celtics. We're talking about Bird and McHale. Jordan, or the Bulls, it's obviously Pippen and Jordan. Like, we're not talking about organizationally. And organizationally, the key piece was added 2 years ago, and you can't have a 2-year dynasty.
How many more rings does this Warriors team? One more and it's a dynasty?
Yeah.
You both agree?
I mean, it's so tough. When do they get it? You know, if they get it in 3 or 4 years, when I say it was a dynasty, it's gonna be close. It's going to be hard if they win in the next 3 years to say that this wasn't some type of dynasty.
Of course.
Well, just the years and everything, but man, this start winning 2, in the first. It would be hard to not have them in the conversation as far as not being a dynasty.
All right, we'll talk about this, I'm sure. Coming up, though, D. Wade chimes in on where LeBron should end up this offseason. Hear from him next on First Things First. Time for some stories to start your morning. With LeBron's future in question, Kevin Love is trying to keep him in Cleveland. Love says he wants to play with LeBron for the rest of his career. Memo to Kevin Love, you got an uphill battle, buddy. CC, what are the chances LeBron stays in Cleveland?
Slim. I'll say less than 10%. I mean, unless one of his sons,
so you're saying
Bron,
there's a chance.
The 13-year-old comes home and say, hey, Dad, you know something? I like my AAU team I'm playing on. I want to play at St. V. I want to play the same high school where you played. That would have a pull on LeBron and on his mom and on the grandmother. But I would say less than 10%.
I say the only shot is if the entire family's unanimous that they want to stay. Because from a basketball perspective, from a trust perspective with ownership, from a teammate perspective, from a championship perspective, Cleveland's his worst option. The only reason would be is if his sons and his wife say, we desperately want to stay here.
Or if the rest of the team retires.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I'd say no shot.
All right, to Kyle Korver now. To say he had a rough NBA Finals would be a bit of an understatement. The guy shot 1 for 16 in 4 games of the Finals. 1 shot, 4 games. If I did the math, what is that, Nick? Like
6.25%.
6.25% was what I was going to say. Nick said it first. Nick, how bad was Korver's Finals performance?
It was somehow worse than last year's. Last year, they thought he wasn't playable. They only put him on the court in key moments or in certain moments. He obviously missed the shot that helped change the NBA Finals. I mean, this year, he didn't make a shot in games 2, 3, and 4, and in game 1, he made 1. Like, he played as poorly as you can offensively after being maybe their second best player during the Eastern Conference playoffs. He shot 46% from 3 until the NBA Finals, and then he shot 11% from 3 in the NBA Finals.
The Warriors did an amazing job defensively. You have to give them a lot of credit. They know his style. He is like a poor man's version of Klay Thompson, who they play against all the time. So they play up on the three-point line. They dare him to dribble the ball, and then in matchups on defense, they go right at him. So they make Ty Lue put him in a pickle as far as do we play him, and he lost his confidence after game number 1.
It was terrible, man.
All right, moving on to someone who did actually take shots and make shots, Steph Curry. Coming off a rough Game 3, he had an excellent Game 4, scored 37 points. He hit 7 three-pointers. CC, what did you think of Steph's Finals performance?
I thought it was a classic Steph performance. I thought that he came out and was very, very aggressive in the beginning. I thought that was very important. But this is what Steph Curry does. Now, he hasn't had the type of consistency that we would want in the NBA Finals, but his numbers, when you look at the totality of them, his numbers are good. But with KD, with Klay, it's hard to get 30 points every single game. But I was really shocked because this is the first time he really had played well on the road.
Listen, this is the only reason he's not Finals MVP. I shouldn't say the only reason, but the 1 for 14 to start Game 3 while Durant was going off is what switched the narrative. But this is the second straight Finals where Steph's been really good. I mean, 28, 6, and 7 is what he gave you. Now, his shooting percentage is not what he would have wanted it to be. And Durant's shooting percentage was excellent, which is why he won the Finals MVP. But last year, he almost averaged a triple-double in the Finals on more than 25 points per game. In 2015, he was the best player on that team and should have won it that year. But this guy was clearly the best.
All right, finally, Kevin Durant won his second straight Finals MVP award. KD averaged over 28 points, 10 boards, and 7 assists in these NBA Finals, including a triple-double in Game 4. Nick, did they give the Finals MVP to the right guy? Because it was Steph early on.
It was Steph early on. Steph got 4 of the votes for Finals MVP. KD got 7 of them. There's only 11 people that vote. It's because they got to do it quick now. Like they got to do it basically as the final game is ending, so they can't do 100 voters. I mean, I thought this was a no-brainer. I tweeted out from the game, to me, KD is the clear Finals MVP. Maybe Steph will get it as a make good for 2015. And I think the people that voted for Steph, it was about a make good. Because KD averaged more points, more rebounds, more assists. He shot 53% from the field compared to Steph's 40% from the field. And he was better defensively. Like, in every single box, KD was better. He also had the iconic moment of the series at the end of Game 3, while Steph did have the great quarter at the end of Game 2. Yes, I mean, it would have been, To me, it would have been ridiculous to give the MVP to anyone else.
Yeah, the two things that really stood out to me was the shooting percentage. When you're shooting 53 compared to 40, that right there is a huge difference, and it's going to be hard for the person shooting 40 to be able to overcome that. But if you look at the one thing we said critical about KD in the Houston series was, yeah, he scored a lot of points, but he wasn't a playmaker. When they went isolation, the offense kind of slowed down. He didn't create plays. But he averaged more assists in the finals than Steph did. So he had to drastically address that offensive. And when I get the ball, I'm also going to be a playmaker, not just a scorer. Those are the two things. Shooting percentage and his playmaking ability made it obvious to me why he should get MVP.
The KD jumped his game up in two areas from the Western Conference playoffs to the NBA Finals. Until the NBA Finals and the playoffs, he was shooting less than 30% from three. In the finals, he shot better than 40% from three. And that obviously those huge, long, deep threes in game 3 that were a huge part of them winning that game. And the assist thing, see? Like, you could not be more right about the assists. That he was giving you less than 4 assists per game going into the NBA Finals, and in the finals he averaged almost 8 a game. Like, that, the jump in the playmaking was enormous because it made the Warriors offense, even when it was running through him, look very Warriors-y with the ball movement and the ball skipping, as opposed to against Houston, where it would be ISOs for Kevin Durant.
How big of a deal is it to win the MVP award at the end of the Finals MVP award? I mean, is it that big of a deal if you already have the title? Well,
this is the thing. When you're playing in an era with LeBron and you're playing on the same team as Steph, and this is the way there's certain sports, they keep certain numbers and certain trophies have more relevance than other ones.
Okay.
And in the NBA, the regular season MVP is very, very important, far more important than all-star games. And when you start getting to the finals, the MVP of the finals becomes very, very important, especially if you happen to have somebody. If you have a title, you happen to have MVP during the regular season, some of these other things, especially when you're not considered the best player in the world. To be back-to-back MVP against LeBron James and the Cavs, I believe it's the most significant thing that Kevin Durant has done in his athletic career.
And we got to do the counterfactual for a moment. What if he had gotten neither of these MVPs and they'd won both titles? Then the narrative about him going to Golden State is very different.
You're right.
By winning these 2 Finals MVPs, if
he joined Steph.
Right. When we were having the dynasty conversation last segment, if he hadn't won either of these Finals MVPs and was just a supporting actor in this movie, I might say, yeah, it's a Warriors dynasty. They've won 3 out of 4. Because he's been, though, the leading man in these finals, to me, this feels like the Kevin Durant version of the Warriors. And man, listen, winning back-to-back Finals MVPs is special. It's a special rarefied air. I mean, basically since 1990, and I could go further back, but it's just Jordan, Hakeem, Shaq, Kobe, LeBron, and now Durant. And those also happen to be, aside from Tim Duncan, the 6 of the 7 best players of the last 25, 30 years. So, I mean, yeah, it's an important one.
Okay, back to LeBron James now and the thought bubble that currently resides over his shoulder. What do I do next year? Other bubbles include, this soft cast is itchy, and how did A.Smith not know the score? LeBron is a free agent this summer. What's going to factor into his decision? Is it more rings? Is it a better lifestyle? As Nick and Cece said, a better high school for his boys? Former teammate Dwayne Wade weighed in on LeBron's decision.
For me, I mean, I don't think it's a basketball thing. I mean, obviously he's shown this year he could get to the finals, you know, no matter what the circumstances are. I don't really think for him the basketball decision of saying, oh, let me go team up with 3 all-stars. And I think at this point in his life, it's more so of a lifestyle thing of, you know, where my family's going to be the most comfortable at, where I'm going to be the happiest at. Because basketball-wise, he's so great, he can bring along and take along whoever.
I will be asking this question in 7,000 different ways and 400 different languages over the course of the next couple of weeks. Where do you think LeBron is going to go, CC?
And Jenna, every time I'm going to try to have a smile on my face, say, Jenna, that's a good question.
Also, are you worried about the Cavs this year?
I want to know, are you asking him where he thinks he's going to go or where he should go?
Where LeBron should go.
Because those might be 2 different things. If you were giving the one thing is a prediction of where he will go. Another thing is, and what I'd really like to hear is, if LeBron came to Chris Carter and said, where should I go? Where's your advice for him to go? Maybe they're the same, maybe not.
I think there's some very compelling stories. I think what they have in the process in Philadelphia it's intriguing. Houston being a healthy Chris Paul away from potentially I think that's a perfect situation for him to battle the Warriors. But I think ultimately, if I'm thinking about LeBron as a company, if I'm hearing what Dwayne Wade is saying, his best friend potentially in the world, I think he's going to go to the Lakers. And the reason why is I think he likes to be supported by an organization. I think that Magic Johnson being there is very, very important. I think that his brand and what he wants to do after basketball becomes very important. I think his son's overall development, especially his oldest one, is a basketball player in Los Angeles, the AAU circuit, the good high school, an opportunity for him to stay there and grow year-round compared to being in Cleveland during the school year and then being Vegas, L.A. in the offseason. I think all those things lead to saying the Los Angeles Lakers, this is the way they have acquired other great players. So LeBron would be a part of, and that's how they got Kareem. That's how they got a lot of these other great, Shaq.
Wilt.
That's how they got them traded for Kobe on the draft. He was drafted by Charlotte. So I believe that the Los Angeles Lakers, to me, are the leading candidate to land LeBron James.
Okay.
So can I just say, if we were in a pitch meeting right now, I'd be like, yeah, let's go. I'm in. Like, that was, by the way, great sell for the Lakers.
So, well, let me add a little bit of information before I give my opinion.
Okay.
First one is this. Anyone that, and I haven't seen anyone do it yet, but I just want to let people know, anyone that goes on TV today or tomorrow or radio, print, whatever, and claims they know this answer is lying to you. Because LeBron does not know yet. LeBron has not made up his mind, which means he could be swayed. It also means it is such a difficult decision because there is no perfect option.
And one thing we have to really be careful with in this, the first decision, I was very, very fortunate. I was with another network, but I was very, very fortunate to have some of the intel. Now, this is their third decision. They did the second decision better than the first decision. The second decision, only a few people knew about that. They were able to get the letter out and everything. It was done almost perfect. This one, I think, will be even done even better, and there will be even less people that know about where he's going to go.
And right now, no one can know because LeBron doesn't know yet. Now, what I do know is this, from a lunch CC and I had months ago that we've kind of alluded to, but never given full details with someone as connected to the NBA as you can get. That person, while is not on LeBron's circle, just on the NBA circle, was convinced, listen, man, it's Los Angeles. The whole league's known he wants to do Los Angeles. It's Los Angeles, plus Paul George, plus maybe someone else. That's what people have been saying for over a year now. And so I know there is momentum towards there. It sounds to me like Dwayne Wade thinks it's Los Angeles, right? But there are, at least in my eyes, the possibility, especially with the latest Kyrie Irving news, that the Celtics are worried that Kyrie, when he's a free agent in a year, is going to go to New York. I would be surprised if there was not the discussion, as Jonathan Jarks laid out on The Ringer, I thought very well, of a sign and three-way trade, where the Knicks, Celtics, and Cavs are all involved, where the Knicks get Kyrie, where the Cavs get draft picks from the Knicks, and where LeBron goes to Boston. Why would you have to involve the Knicks? Because the Celtics don't have the salaries to match up. So you can't just do Kyrie straight back there. And if they think Kyrie could be leaving anyway in a year, that one is interesting. Philadelphia is the cleanest of the opportunities as far as a cap space standpoint and as far as a ready to win. Houston is the best from a winning standpoint, far and away the hardest from a cap standpoint. Far and away the most difficult to make it work. And in the past, LeBron has said, clear up your cap space, and then I'll consider you. Houston is not in a position, in my opinion, where they could tear the team down for a chance to get LeBron. They could only tear the team down for a guarantee to get LeBron.
So the best news out of all this is LeBron is pretty much able to make his decision. The table is set for him to just decide where he wants to go and what's best for him. There's a few little things here and there, but there could be a three-way trade or whatever he wants to do with it. Talk to me about the timing of this. When does he have to make a decision by? When do we expect to hear this by?
Well, there's one. Let me add this one little nerdy note. June 29th is when he would have to opt into his player deal.
Yes. So he has to let the team know, is he going to opt into the deal, which he's not.
So, well, the only reason he would
if they
is a sign and trade.
Okay.
So if the sign and trade's going to happen, we will know it earlier than free agency because the deadline's June 29th. If the sign and trade's not going to happen, he's just going to have a clean, then it's sometime in the first couple weeks of July. I mean, he's made people wait in the past. It would July 1st open a free agency.
July 1st is NBA free agency, Jenna, so very good question. When he opts into the contract, that is a drop-dead date. Definitely red alert on that. But LeBron typically has made us wait.
Yes.
I think the first decision was done July 9th, and then the next decision was done July 10th. So he's typically had a little period in there, and that, as far as what he's saying about Houston, they haven't cleared up that cap space. I think the opt-in thing is going to really tell if Boston and that can be done. But to think that a kid in Kyrie Irving that grew up across the bridge in New Jersey wouldn't want to play for a franchise like the Knicks. Also, as a kid, he grew up wanting to play for Duke. All right? He ended up going to Duke. Now saying that he potentially might want to play for the Knicks, that's not a far reach for me. So I think that's a good nugget right there.
And Kyrie, not as a kid, but as an adult, wants to be the man. And sometimes life is unfair. And after he hurt his knee, guess what? Jason Tatum is Boston's adopted son. Jason Tatum is their favorite guy. Jason Tatum is the guy that those fans have already attached themselves to.
Unless LeBron gets there.
Well, sure, but the Kyrie thing, Kyrie wanted out of Cleveland in large part because
he didn't choose Boston.
He didn't choose Boston.
Right.
He had said the Knicks, he had said the Spurs, and he had oddly said the Minnesota Timberwolves, which I didn't totally understand, but he had said those three teams.
It said he can prove out his theory that the world's flat up there.
By the way, great. You got to read the New York Times interview where he doubles, triples, and then quadruples down on the world. Maybe not being round, but that's a story for another day.
All right. Oh, this is going to be a fun one to break down over the course of the next month and a half. Oh, thank you, Chris Carter. Coming up, how does Kevin Durant have it harder than LeBron James?
Oh, come on.
I promise you are going to want to hear what he has to say about that next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. NBA champ Steven Jackson joins the show.
Good to see you,
I'm
brother.
back.
Love having you here.
That's a strong look there, man. That's a strong look.
Glasses means necessary.
Goatee, I see it. J's on my feet. He ain't playing today. Okay.
Not at all.
We have a lot to go over with you today, Steven
Respect,
Jackson.
my brother.
We'll start with KD. Kevin Durant won his second title and second Finals MVP in the last two seasons with Golden State. And while many consider him the second best player in the world behind LeBron, Durant will tell you his role is harder than you might think. He said, quote, "I feel like it's easy to be the best player when you don't have any good players around you. I feel like it's harder to stand out when you have great players around you. I pride myself on standing out wherever I am. I pride myself on working hard wherever I go. And I feel like these guys embraced me, and I feel like I'm a warrior." All right, Steven, let's start with you. Is KD right?
I think he's definitely right. It's definitely harder to be the best player on the team when you got guys like Clay, when you got guys like Steph, another guy who's won 2 MVPs on your team, that's won a championship without you. It's definitely harder to be that man. I know when I played in Atlanta, my team wasn't that good, and it was easy for me to be the leading scorer and lead the team. When I got to Indiana, I had Jermaine O'Neal, I had Ron Artest, I had Reggie Miller. I had other guys that upped my level, but it was harder for me to be the leading scorer, being the best guy every night, because I had other talented guys on my team. So it definitely makes you better, but it's definitely harder to be the best player every night on your team when you have other guys that could be the same.
Yeah, he's right about that part, but that's only part of the question. But can you take this ragtag bunch of bad news bears, can you take them to the finals? Now, on a nightly basis, yeah, because you're the most talented. It's easy to get the most rebounds. It's easy because they don't have the talent. But, KD, could you go to Cleveland, all right, and do what LeBron did, play 82 games? Absolutely.
It's the East. You never know.
Oh, come on.
You never know.
For one, I know he's not going to play 82 games, all right? I know he's not going to get through those 3 series, all right? He's not going to get through the Pacers with that team down. No support. Okay, because KD doesn't play make enough to build support that team.
He's not a playmaker.
He doesn't dribble the ball enough. He doesn't have the overall endurance to be able to play those type of minutes. So I understand, KD, what you're saying. Yeah, for a one game, yeah, of course it's easier to get 30 points because there's 30 points to be had because you don't have the scores.
Well,
but to do that for 82 games, no.
Listen,
no, he's wrong.
If he's trying to compare himself to... Well,
is he comparing himself to LeBron?
Well,
I think he's just answering the question.
Okay, but it was... listen, Kevin Durant is doing an interview, and he talks about his teammates and how hard it is to stand out right after LeBron had said it's easier for those guys because they don't have the pressure to bring it every single night because you have these other great players. If KD's talking about being a good stats, bad team guy, I agree with him. The guys that we know all across the league. Kevin Love when he was in Minnesota.
Yes.
Right. Like, of course, every NBA team is going to score at least 95 points a game, no matter how bad you are. So if you're on a terrible team and you're the best guy, it's easy to get numbers, and those numbers don't necessarily translate to if you're on a great team. I agree with that. But if we're doing a LeBron, who has the harder job, LeBron or Durant? It's one of the silliest questions I ever heard. And the idea, like, Kevin, here's the benefit. Here's why your job is easier than you're making it sound. You can go 6 for 17 in Game 6, a closeout game against Houston, and your team can win by 20-plus points. You can go 7 for 17 in the closeout game of the NBA Finals, and your team can win by 1,000 points. You can be great.
Let's go game one.
But that's not the question, though. The question is, it's harder to be the best player on his team.
But it's not. But
it is. When you have other great players, it's definitely harder. It's not hard for LeBron to be the best player when you got Jordan Clarkson.
No, we're talking about the best player in the world.
He says, I feel like it's easy to be the best player when you don't have good players around you. That's the exact quote. I feel like it's harder to stand out when you have great players around you.
It is.
But that's okay. So that
part is true. Yeah. But you can't put the two comments together.
But that's only true if the NBA, and I didn't know it, outlawed double teaming. It's only true if the NBA all of a sudden your teammates can't set you up for success. That is it would only be true if everyone around you is a gunner. Like, oh, it's hard to have the great player in Draymond who helps you out defensively, who looks to move the ball. It's hard to have Steph and Clay who make it so you can never be double teamed. It's a ridiculous
I have a question. Who for Golden State did the game get harder once they got Kevin Durant?
Right.
Because to me, all of them got easier, from the coach to Steph, to Clay, to Draymond. Draymond then gave up shooting.
The hardest job is fitting in to a championship team. They already had that team with KD, so it was harder
Not
for KD
when you're the second best player in the world, Steve Jackson.
It's harder for you to fit in on a championship team already. That team when you go into a championship, regardless who you are, this team that already won a championship.
Is it hard to fit on a championship team?
So all you can do is make it worse.
Or hard to fit on a team that already has skilled players that are going to want the ball.
A team that won a championship, regardless who you are, when you come into that team that's already won a championship, you have to fit in. They're not going to change anything for you.
Now, I do agree with you on that. You do have to fit in. But this is still not absent of what he's saying about LeBron. So these are two different conversations. But when you join Golden State and they won 73 games, yeah, you have to fit. But this is the thing. They are trying to make you fit in. The offense is made for you to fit in. They play a style that they need 3 shooters. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you're playing in a half-court offense that's going to bog it down. We're going to pass the ball around like San Antonio does. No, they're not going to do it. They're going to get out. They're going to play with pace. And, man, you can shoot the ball. Everyone on that team got a green light for the most part.
So I just want to make sure I understand it. I want to make sure I'm following the logical path here. The place LeBron could choose this offseason that would be the hardest for him is Golden State. The second hardest would be Houston, and the easiest would be if he signed up to go play with Dallas, right? Like, is that what we're actually saying here? That playing with good players makes your job harder? It doesn't make any.
But I think we misinterpreting the question. It's not if your job's going to be harder. It's harder to be the best player on that team with other better players.
But there's no better. But here's the thing. I would agree with you.
It's easy for LeBron because nobody's good there.
Look, if we look, okay, we look at it this way, all right? Based on all the NBA teams, is it easier for the top 5 players, LeBron and Westbrook, to be the best players on their team? Yes, but that's not what we're talking about, though. We're talking about the best player in the world. We're not talking about those guys on their team because
every team Durant goes to except for LeBron's team, he's going to be the best player. I would agree that it could be difficult for the 13th best player in the world, who was the best player on his own team, to then join up with Golden State, right? Like, it was Kevin Love. I understand why people would say, man, everything was revolved around him in Minnesota, and now he's got to fit in. Chris Paul, similarly. But when you go somewhere and you're immediately the best guy, things are going to revolve around you, like, at least in my eyes.
Some nights, though, he wasn't the best guy.
Right, we understand that. But based on KD's personality, you've been around this league, man. You know this league. You got information on players, organizations, stuff that you don't even say on TV, man. All right? Like, you know this stuff. You cannot tell me, you know Kevin Durant. Him going to Golden State was such a relief for him. He is not a killer. He is not a guy that every day he want to wake up and just go take a guy's heart out. No, the best place for him was to go to Golden State. Would you not agree, based on his personality, that was true?
I only look at it as
even though you didn't like
losing.
It.
I look
but
at
look at his personality.
Losing.
Look at his personality, man. Look at what he wants to do.
I can't say that.
Well, what would you say? What would have been a better place? His best place would have been to stay OKC.
The only thing I can say is he wanted to win. That's all I can say. And I will never go against anybody because I know too many guys that come into the game for what it can do for him and not about winning. I respect the man regardless if he's the best player in the world, he's the last one on the bench. His decision is made off winning games. And if you're playing basketball, if you come into the NBA, that should be your goal, to win. So I can never knock him for that.
I just want to read one other quote quickly from this same story to back up Cece's point. All I want to do in my life while I'm healthy is work on my game, enjoy the game, and not worry about nothing else. This place gives me that. This is the best place for me to just play ball, work on my game, play ball, not care about other bleep that normal NBA superstars are supposed to care about. He's admitting it all right there. Everyone else can care about being the best guy. Everyone else can care about...
That's not what he means.
No.
That's not what he means.
No, what he means there is all I care about is getting my basketball level to the highest level possible in a city that I'm comfortable in and winning. Everyone else can care about...
I don't care about the dress code. I don't care about guys dressing up.
Exactly right.
I want to be me. I want to do good things off the court and play basketball and be great. I care about anything
100%.
And I don't have a problem with KD. I thought KD went to the right place, but it was based for him.
We wouldn't have made that decision.
Right.
No. We wouldn't have. I wouldn't have.
Exactly.
No, I wouldn't have.
And that's what, when he says, I don't care about the normal bleep that normal NBA superstars are supposed to care about, he's saying, I don't care about your competitive balance.
Right.
I don't care about your legacy conversations.
How you feel about me.
I don't care about how you feel about me. It also, to me, means he's never leaving. I thought there was a chance he might leave.
He said that. He's never leaving.
I'm too comfortable.
He's too comfortable. He's never leaving.
And I can get paid.
Right.
All right, Stephen, stick around. Coming up, how much blame does LeBron deserve for injuring himself? Wait till Stephen weighs in on that next on First Things First. Back here with Stephen Jackson on First Things First. The NBA season is now in the books. Normally time for dust to settle and ultimate frisbee to take center stage. Oh, but wait. We are nowhere near done with how this season ended. Over the weekend, the Warriors won their third NBA title in 4 years, sweeping the Cavaliers. And then 5 minutes after that, LeBron James came to the press conference with a soft cast on his shooting hand. Reports surfaced he punched a whiteboard after that very frustrating Game 1 loss. Stephen, how much blame does LeBron deserve for this?
I mean, if he still can have the series he had with a broken hand or whatever he done to his hand, then they should have never even said nothing. Like, I don't even know why would it even be a subject right now. Like, or why would he even come out and talk about it? The series is over. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't go back and start over because your hand's hurt. You know, just leave it alone. I think it wasn't a good decision by the guy who you expect to carry your team, knowing how the biggest burden he had and how much he had to carry his team. For him to do that was real selfish. You know, a lot of people saying LeBron was been selfish during the season as far as his stats and all this stuff. Well, punching the board, knowing how much your team needs you.
With your shooting hand.
I think that was real selfish. But to me, it really didn't look like it affected his game at all. I mean, he was still dominant. At times, I think his heart was questioned. You know, I don't know if he punched his heart against the whiteboard because at times it looked like his heart was hurting. You know, he wasn't competing, wasn't giving the same energy that we normally see from LeBron. So I just think it was too late to come out with. The series was over. Hey, if you hurt your hand, just say you hurt it, but don't bring it up and try to make it the topic of taking away from getting swept.
Right. Going into Game 2, especially after what happened at the end of Game number 1, I thought LeBron's philosophy was going to be get to the hole as much as possible, try to draw a double team, but I'm going to be a scoring threat in the series, which resulted in him getting 51 in game number 1. But in games 2, 3, and 4, I didn't have any information that his hand was hurt. I thought he was still trying to go to the hole, still trying to force it. But then after hearing about the injury in game number 4, it took me back. Now, my mind had to go back on the games, but like, man, he didn't shoot a lot of jump shots.
Stop shooting jump shots.
So now I have to look at the results in the numbers. Like, I didn't know before I saw the soft cast. But then after that, and sitting and talking to Nick this morning, I was shocked by the lack of jump shots and the lack of jump shots he made in games 2, 3, and 4, Steve.
You're smiling.
Yeah, I mean.
Now, you're not an excuse guy.
Not at all.
No, we're not trying to make an excuse.
Here's the thing. Let me, because I know.
After you go 51-8-8, your starting point go out and miss a free throw. Your starting shooting go out and make a bonehead play, and you do everything you can to win game 1. You had a great game, and you don't win it. That took a lot out of him. He quit. I don't want to hear nothing about no hand or none of that. He quit. He knew he was playing against a better team. After game 1, he knew he was beat. Point blank, bruh. It had nothing to do with his hand. If your hand, hey, okay, we was talking about Steph. It's ankle. He was out there still playing.
Agreed.
You're not hurt. So you're not hurt, LeBron. Just leave it alone.
Well, okay, well, hold on.
We can't make excuses. They got swept,
Listen.
okay? 4-0. Take it like a man. Go home, bruh. Heal your hand up. Have a great offseason. Figure out where you're going. But do not make that as an excuse. Y'all got swept by a better team. The whole world knows that.
Okay, a couple things, Stephen. First of all, on the injury. You get no pass for a self-inflicted injury.
At all.
You get, listen, and even if it's not self-inflicted, one of the great things about LeBron is his durability. He's never missed a playoff game. So we can't have it both ways.
And his self-control.
Right. So you don't get a pass for a self-inflicted injury, and he was out there anyway. And so I agree with you on that. But you also, the audience needs to know, and you need to know, LeBron did not leak this information. LeBron's people did not leak this information. LeBron didn't want this information out there because he thought it was embarrassing that he broke his damn hand.
So show up for one more press conference. 30 more seconds go without the cast on it.
Exactly.
The information was, hold on.
Okay, now Nick
the information was out there before LeBron got to the press conference. So he's going to be asked about the hand. There are pictures out there before he gets to the press conference of his right hand swollen and his left hand fine. Like, again.
That was clear.
So the idea that he put it out there, or the soft cast is why it was out there, is just not factually accurate. Now, it's not a pass, but I want to. When did he quit? Is my question.
After game 1.
So in game 2, 29, 9, and 13, or in game 3, the 33-point triple-double. Both those games shooting around 50%. He had quit.
I mean, he knew he couldn't win. He knew he couldn't beat Golden State. I didn't say he didn't go out there and play, but he knew as a team they couldn't beat Golden State in this series. He knew that after game 1. After having all those heroics he did in game 1, he knew.
But also now, Steve, now you got to give him credit too. He also knew that they blew a game. So if there was a time to have doubt, because going into the series, I don't care who you are, I don't care what type of faith, I don't care what type of scriptures you're reading. When you're facing Golden State, you realize, man, we are up against it. So LeBron, like, he knew that. But when you blow the first game, you've been playing this team 3 years in a row, and you give them, so yeah, I can expect he's human, but he didn't give up after that. Well, and the numbers
what he did was stop shooting jump shots. In the first game, he was 7 of 16 on shots from 10-plus feet. He took 16 jump shots in the first game. In games 2, 3, and 4 combined, he took 19 of them. His average distance from the hoop on shots from games 1 through 4 went like this: 12.5 feet to 10 feet to 5 feet to 4 feet. That was the difference in his game. His rebound numbers were the same. His assist numbers were the same. His difference was he taking and making jump shots after game 1? And the answer was no. Like, I don't think that's, you think that's a heart thing. You think that's a, I know we can't win thing. I think it's a, he wasn't taking jump shots thing, probably in part because he had an injured hand, which he doesn't get a pass for, but you understand why he wasn't taking the jump shots.
Everybody hurt at this part of the season. I don't want to hear nothing about the hand. Like, the hand thing, they just let that go. Yeah, he hurt his hand. Okay, cool. He still played. You just said he had a triple-double with his hand hurt. So that shouldn't be an issue. My point is, after going 51-8-8, after doing all you can to win game 1 on the road, the biggest game in your NBA career, game 1, you do everything you can. Your team blow it. Your coach don't call a timeout. That would take a lot out of me.
Yes.
Now, it took all the air left out of him after, as you said, seen the frustration, putting his head, punching the board now. That's even more frustrating. So we knew he was frustrated. I'm not saying he quit playing, but as far as him, the same confidence he had going into game one, he didn't have the same confidence the rest of the series after losing that big game, game one.
Man. Tell it like it is, Stephen.
Got to.
Good to have you here. We're going to see you a little bit later on the show. Coming up, could Kyrie Irving be on the move again? Ooh. Next, first things first. And for in or out, Kevin Durant received 7 of 11 Finals MVP votes to win the award in back-to-back seasons. The other 4 votes all went to Steph Curry. CC, you in or out on KD winning Finals MVP?
Absolutely. I'm in, Jenna. And the reason why shooting percentage, about 13 points higher than Steph Curry, and also playmaking, averaging more assists, even touching the ball less than Steph Curry, their floor general. So, yes, I'm in with KD being the MVP.
To me, this is an absolute no-brainer. He averaged more points, more rebounds, more assists, shot a better percentage, was better defensively. He was the best player in these NBA Finals.
Taller.
For all these reasons, he was, to me, the clear-cut MVP. Those 4 votes Steph got, yes, Steph was great in Game 4 and he had the quarter in Game 2, but it was more, I think, an attempt to make good the fact that Steph didn't win it 4 years ago in 2015.
All right, the Warriors have now won 3 titles in 4 years, so that has many people trying to figure out where this run for Golden State ranks all time. Nick, you in or out on the Warriors being the best dynasty since the Chicago Bulls?
I am out. I'm out for multiple reasons. One, I don't consider this team a dynasty yet. The clock reset when KD got there, so they got to win another one for me to consider them a dynasty. But even if we say, but they're a dynasty, Nick, no. To me, the best dynasty since the Bulls was the Shaq and Kobe Lakers. 3 titles in 3 years, a dominant run where you had the best player in the world in Shaquille O'Neal and a guy getting close to that in Kobe Bryant. So I'm out for both those reasons.
Okay.
This is a very good basketball team. I'm going to go in because with the 3 superstars and Draymond Green being that 4th piece, very, very intriguing, the comparison. You can compare them with several teams in NBA history. I think they will go down. Nick makes up a great point. When you add the best players. So I'm going to give them the best, but a little asterisk on it because I want to see how long they can play together and how many championships they can win.
Okay.
A little asterisk.
I like the little asterisk. Now the NBA's attention
That's
turns
because I didn't want them to change the graphic.
LeBron's free agency. Will he stay or will he go? The Spurs will reportedly throw their hat into the ring for LBJ services. CC, you in or out on San Antonio being the best team in the NBA if they get LeBron?
I'm in on San Antonio being one of the best situations, but I got to be out as far as the best situation for LeBron because I know his family, I know location, lifestyle. San Antonio doesn't provide that. They do provide Popovich, the best coach in the search. So it does fit one of his criteria, but I got to be out.
And as far as would they be the best team with him, I'm out on that just because I don't know how healthy Kawhi is. I don't know when Kawhi comes back after missing essentially a full year, is he one of the 5 best players in the league like he was before the injury, or is he something less than that?
And you would still have questions as far as who's going to be their point guard, and they still need some overall shooting and athleticism.
Right. I think that Pop would obviously be the best coach he ever played with. It would be an interesting situation, and they would be a contender. But until I see Kawhi Leonard play healthy basketball, I can't say for sure they would be one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the league.
So just go get Pop and then go to the Lakers. Like, why is that so hard?
Yeah.
Friend of the show, Chris Mannix recently dropped a bombshell saying that the Celtics are scared of Kyrie leaving for the Big Apple. Nick, are you in or out on Kyrie leaving Boston for the Knicks after next season when he will actually be a free agent?
After next season's a free agent, I am in on this. I am in on this because Kyrie wanted to go to the Knicks initially. He seemed to be having a great time in Boston. But, man, things can change quickly. And the way Jason Tatum played in the playoffs and the way the city has absolutely wrapped both arms around Jason Tatum, right now, I believe Celtics fans, if they said, hey, we can do a sign-and trade for LeBron, but we got to trade Jason Tatum, Celtics fans say, nah, we good on that. They absolutely would be okay with a sign-and trade for LeBron that traded away Kyrie Irving. We know Kyrie doesn't like that type of stuff. So for all those reasons, I'm in on Kyrie leaving for the Knicks after this year.
I'm kind of into the story with the Celtics, Jenna, Danny Ainge, what he's doing with his young talent, Tatum. I'd like to see him moving forward. So I'm going to be out. It's not that I don't think it can happen. So a kid from New Jersey, growing up across the bridge from the New York Knicks, wanting to play for the Knicks? Yeah. No, that's very, very possible. But I believe Danny Ainge, and I want to see Kyrie play with these young guns. I want to see that next year.
Okay, I just want to see Danny Ainge. On to the NFL. Delaney Walker, the Tennessee Titans, said he would welcome Dez Bryant with open arms. Nick, you in or out on Dez being a good fit with the Titans? You see what's happening here. We're going to make our way around the entire league.
I'm in this regard. He fills a need for them, and Marcus Mariota can make some of those off-schedule, running around, out-of-the-pocket plays similar to Tony Romo, where Dez was at his most successful. So while I don't think he'd be an all-pro or even a Pro Bowl level guy necessarily, I do think the fit works.
Yeah, I do believe that the fit works to some degree. Now, the problem is they got a top 10 pick in Corey Davis from Western Michigan based on injury. Right now, he's closer to being a bust with question marks about him. He plays the same position as Dez Bryant. But the plus for me is Mike Vrabel, the head coach. I know Mike. Mike don't take no mess, so he can handle Dez Bryant. He wouldn't have no problem checking Dez Bryant on the sideline. It wouldn't be the New England way, the Patriot way. It would be Vrabel's way. So I would be in on Dez going to the Titans.
My money's on. We're still having this conversation in 3 weeks. Coming up, how much of a hit did LeBron's legacy take this June? Next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First, we are going viral. Alex Ovechkin's been living the good life since winning the Stanley Cup last week. Take a look at a couple of his highlights. We won't show the lowlights. Playing in a water fountain, that's 3 inches of water that he tossed sanitary means aside and decided he was going to play in. Next.
You probably don't let your kids play in
No
those fountains.
shot. Next, keg stand out of Lord Stanley.
I'm going to tell you, if I win a championship, I'm going to act a fool. I might need 30 days in rehab or something afterwards. I'm telling you, I'm going to cut a fool. Oh, man.
Hold on. We can't forget Ovi's first pitch right here. Wasn't pretty first time around.
Oh, the old lollipop pitch. That's all right.
When you win the first Stanley Cup in franchise history, you get a mulligan. So you play a little.
Oh, they let him throw it twice.
Yeah.
Man,
I've never seen them do let it throw something.
Look at this man. That man right there. That's why.
Can you look at that guy and be like, oh, that guy's like the best player on the.
He's going to have to have like the Stanley Cup to get someone to be with him. Look at that. I mean, goodness gracious. He needs a shower and a shave.
If you were dropped down from another planet, would you say, oh, that guy is one of the greatest
best athletes alive. Yeah.
One of the greatest athletes of our time.
Hockey players, man. Looked
like he took a bite out of the cup.
I mean, he's one of the 2 best players of his generation without any question, right?
It's a great story.
Yeah, I mean
long overdue.
Story. Long overdue. Good for the Capitals, good for Ovechkin.
Back to his training regimen. First thing tomorrow, time for some stories to start your morning. We start with LeBron and his free agency. The Lakers have emerged as the Vegas favorites to land King James. Nick, what do you think? Should LeBron go to Los Angeles?
It would not be the best basketball fit, even assuming Paul George goes with him. But it wouldn't be a terrible basketball fit, and it might be the best lifestyle fit. His best friend and business partner, Maverick Carter, lives in Los Angeles. Obviously, the movie opportunities and the marketing opportunities are in Los Angeles. I think basketball-wise, Philly's the best opportunity. Houston, if they can make it work. But Los Angeles isn't such a bad basketball opportunity that it becomes untenable. And man, see, people around the league have been thinking that's where he's going to go for the last couple of years.
My mind has changed as we've gone through the season. But after seeing LeBron get to the finals, man, I thought they were going to lose to the Pacers. I knew the Raptors going to finally get their number. And at Boston, they're going to close them out. They got home court. Nah, none of these things happen. Just to see them play the Warriors competitive with the Cavaliers, man, LeBron can go anywhere, but the Lakers are the favorite.
All right, to Kyle Korver now. Well, to say he had a rough NBA Finals would be just, I don't know, slight understatement. The guy shot 1 for 16 in 4 games of the Finals. 1 shot in 4 games. If I do the math, that's like 6.25%. 25%. Nick, how bad was Korver's Finals performance?
Here's how bad it was. When we talked about it earlier, I said he shot 11% from 3. I was wrong.
He missed a couple since
9% from 3. He was 1 of 11 from 3. Listen, he was unplayably bad, yet he still played 16 minutes a game. I mean, the dude, Korver, who was their second best player in the playoffs leading up to the finals, played 66 minutes in the NBA Finals and made 1 shot. And he wasn't out there for his defense.
Nick, I've told you about this job, man. You have an opportunity to lift people up or tear them down. I like this guy. He's been through an awful lot this season, lost his brother. The Cavs are not here without Kyle Korver. He came there as a role player. Man, he helped salvage their season with his steady play and him being familiar with LeBron James. So I'm going to give the man a pass. He's had 2 awful finals, but he's had a quality career. 15 years in the NBA. He's a credit to the game.
Moving on to someone who did actually take shots and make shots, Steph Curry. Coming off a rough Game 3, he had an excellent Game 4, scoring 37 points while hitting 7 3-pointers. CC, what did you think of Steph's finals performance?
Lift Kyle Korver up. I'm tearing Steph down. He was awful. He was terrible. No. This is Steph's problem. Steph has a game and a half every finals of a bad game. They're not all consecutive, but he'll have a half here, game number 1. Hadn't got off to a great start in these finals, but I thought he played good basketball. Played within himself. He's playing with a collection of superstars. I think he played his role phenomenal, just not good enough to be the MVP.
Listen, you got it exactly right. Steph's never had a bad NBA Finals. He's had one well below average NBA Finals. That was in 2016, particularly those final 3 games. But when he was going to win Finals MVP, he was on pace to it. And then he starts Game 3, 1 of 14 from the field, finishes 3 of 16. And the 37 points in Game 4 were not enough to overcome it.
And the luxury he has, no other superstar in the NBA has.
Right. He's the 3rd best player in the world, and he's got the 2nd best player on his own team. This guy here.
All right, now on to Golden State's future. Warriors say they plan to keep them together, keep everybody intact. New contracts for Klay Thompson and Draymond Green are looming. Nick, should the Warriors do everything they can to keep this team intact?
I mean, if Joe Lacob doesn't care about paying the luxury tax, which he shouldn't, that he shouldn't care about it. I'm not saying he shouldn't do it. Listen, Joe Lacob went out and bought this team. He's one of the richest owners in the league. I get so frustrated when guys buy sports franchises and then try to treat them like a regular business. It is buying a sports franchise is not like a regular business where your year-to-year profits are what matter. It's like buying a Picasso. It's about being able to say, I own the Picasso. There's only so many in the world. I own one of them. And when you sell it at the end, you will have made more money than what you paid for it. When Joe Lacob sells the Warriors eventually, he will probably double his profits or triple his profits. In the meantime, he gets to be one of 30 human beings alive that gets to sit courtside at NBA games and say, this is my team. You don't do that to then go be cheap. You have the most talented team in NBA history. If Klay and Draymond want to stay, you pay them whatever it takes to stay. I'm certain Draymond wants to stay. Klay has made it sound like he wants to stay as well. As an NBA fan, am I curious to see what would a team look like with Klay Thompson as his best player? Sure. But it doesn't matter what I'm curious about. Like, should he pay whatever it takes to keep this team together? 100% absolutely yes.
If there was some extenuating circumstances, Jenna, I might, I'd be like, okay. Like the San Antonio, not to put their business out there, but the owner, he's going through something personal. So trying to acquire free agents, who he's going to sign. Does he give Kawhi the max contract? Like, all those things have to be considered given what he's going through. But the owner's the Warriors, he's not. And I believe in being responsible for history. When you're a part of history and you can be responsible, and that's what I believe that he should do as an owner. As a team, Jenna, they've won 4 NBA championships. They only had 1 when he got there. Now, he's added another 3 to them. So now they have 4. They're in an exclusive class as far as the NBA franchises that have won 4. Now, you're talking about the multiples on the dollar that he's going to be able to get, and you have to give him credit. He's created an unbelievable atmosphere to be able to teach basketball and for these guys to be comfortable. Steve Kerr talks about it all the time. The players talk about it all the time. And he was part of the winning presentation that won Kevin Durant. So I believe he should be responsible. Pay the luxury tax, and let's make this run as long as we can make it.
And when they went out and got KD, they knew Steph's contract was coming up. They knew what was on the books for KD and for Klay and Draymond, and they knew KD would need a contract. I don't think you go out and get KD and then 2 years into it, after winning 2 titles, go cheap on it. Like we have seen owners. I saw Clay Bennett in Oklahoma City buy the Sonics, say he's going to keep them there, move them to Oklahoma City, make a bucket of money, and then cry poor, saying, "Oh, I can't sign James Harden to a max. We got to flip him preemptively." Like, it's so frustrating to me when owners do that. So even though I think the Warriors might not be great for the league, you have to do right by your team.
Jenna, we use a phrase that the struggle is real. Now, this is a rich people's struggle, because his struggle is, how much in luxury tax am I going to pay? And having this collection of talents, that is his struggle compared to other people where the struggle is real. How do I get talent? How do I get players to come here?
Hashtag first world problems. Yeah. Back to LeBron James. On Friday, the Warriors completed the sweep, beating Cleveland. LeBron is now 3-6 in the NBA Finals, including losing 4 of his last 5 appearances, 3 coming at the hands of Golden State and 1 with a broken hand. Nick, how does another Finals loss impact LeBron's legacy?
All right, well, so there's 2 questions here. One is how it should, and one is how it will. How it should be as simple as this. It's another year that he did not win a title. And if people want to do the Jordan-LeBron thing, I am totally fine with people saying 6 championships versus 3 championships. It's the back end of the conversation where we include finals losses, but not first, second, or third round losses that I find so intellectually dishonest, it makes me uncomfortable. The idea that LeBron would have been better off when he was down 3-2 against Boston and not in the final 2 games of that series, averaging 41, 13, and 9 to get his team a home win in Game 6 and a road win in Game 7, because then he'd still just be 3-5 in the finals, I find to be laughable and intellectually dishonest. But how will it? It will, because people are just going to shout 3-6. They're going to say he's now got as many finals losses as Jordan has championships. He's now approaching Jerry West's 8 finals losses. Like, that's how it will happen, because people are either, to use the words I just used, intellectually dishonest, or they're just naturally illogical. How it should be, okay, so there's been 2 sweeps in the NBA Finals in the last 15 years. LeBron was involved in both of them. What did they have in common? Oh, they're the 2 worst teams to make an NBA Finals in the last 15 years. Were the 2 teams LeBron took there in 07 and 2018.
Right. There's a lot of ways to make the comparison. For the people who are on the Jordan corner, like it's whatever information is compiled after this, like it won't matter. Like it won't matter what they say, because that 6-0, it's an unapproachable record. But what LeBron and what Nick is saying, especially those 2 bookends, if LeBron wasn't to win another NBA championship, his record would be 3-6. But in those 9 championship series, he was underdog 7 times. So it wasn't like his team underperformed with him. Now, if he had gone into these 9 and he was the favorite 7 times and he only won 3 of them, then that would be very incriminating evidence. But I just believe the first championship and this last one, if his career was to end, his record really should be 3-4, because getting them to the championship at 22 was remarkable. And we saw this season. Now, we're not 20 years removed now. We're watching it in real time. No NBA player would have gotten that Cavs team to the championship. So how can I hold it? And Nick, I'm big on the championships, because that's the way you judge NBA players. But I can't hold his mastery of the regular season and the playoffs against him getting this team to the finals.
Here's the thing, just quickly. You should be big on the championships. I've never said championships don't matter. While it is a team accomplishment, we know in the NBA the best players have the biggest impact on winning or losing compared to other sports. Championships absolutely matter. And we can go down the list. Were you the best player on a championship team? Shaq was 3 times. Kobe was twice. Magic was 4 times. Kareem was twice. Bird was 3 times. LeBron was 3 times. Jordan was 6 times. That is the biggest feather in his cap, and one that he has on the league. I don't mind people counting championships. It's counting finals losses as if they are worse than first, second, or third round losses. That just makes no sense to anybody. It makes no sense if you actually get into it that, oh, you know what would have been bad for Michael Jordan? If in 1995, when they were down 3-2 against Orlando in the second round, when he went 8 of 19 and they lost to knock it out of the second round, if Jordan had scored 50, and they win that series, they go on to the NBA Finals, and then lose to Akeem and the Rockets, that'd have been bad for Jordan. Of course it wouldn't have been.
Right, and one thing that I don't like, because I believe that when you lose in these rounds, you know what you don't get to see, Jenna? You don't see 70, 40-point efforts. So let's say the Cavs, lose. So let's use an equal amount. We can let's say they lose against the Pacers. All right. How many 40-point games LeBron have
Since then?
since that?
He had 6 because he had 8 in these playoffs.
Now, you tell me that wasn't worth it. Now, so when people look at the record, they won't look at the totality, the impact, because it'll be like distant history, and they'll pick the things that they want. But what LeBron did was as special as I've seen anything. And I'm going to tell you, Jenna, those 6 championships, I traveled with the Bulls. I saw Michael Jordan. What LeBron did was as impressive as Jordan with the 4 40-point performances against Phoenix.
Against Phoenix, including a 50-point performance.
Like what he did in this month and a half was as impressive.
Both of you said exactly what I was going to say, is that years from now, we're not going to remember that 07 and 18 were the 2 worst. Maybe if you're a die-hard sports fan, you'll get in and remember what kind of team he had and where they lost in the playoffs leading up to it and what happened in the circumstances. But unfortunately for LeBron, at the end of the day, you're just going to look at 3 and 6. And for many people, that is seemingly, even though I agree with you wholeheartedly, people don't have, I mean, look at this information you have. You're insane.
He's
like, it's mine.
No, that's not what I was trying to do. But we have to just decide as sports commentators
and it's our job,
sports fans, if we want to be honest. And if we want to be honest, what we know is this. It took to beat the Pacers a game-saving block followed by a buzzer-beating 3. It took to break the spirit of the Raptors, one of the wildest buzzer beaters you'd ever see. It took to beat the Boston Celtics, a 45-point Game 6, followed by a 35-point or a 36-point Game 7, sandwiched in between 13 rebounds, 9 assists, averaging. It took to have a chance to beat the Warriors, 51-8-8. Yeah. Through the first 19 games of these playoffs, LeBron played at the highest level we've ever seen basketball played. And then his spirit was broken, and he broke his own damn hand. And the last 3 games, by his own standards, were below average. Now, by his own standards, it still was 28, 9, and 10 on 50% shooting, but still, for LeBron in the finals, not good enough. And he doesn't get a championship this year because of it. But the idea that, you know what would have been better? If Oladipo blew past him, hits the layup, LeBron misses on the other end, and they're bounced in round 1, that is lunacy. But that will be the commentary today. And that will be the commentary until he wins another ring. And when he wins another ring, they'll say, yeah, but he's 4 and 6, or he's 4 and 7, or whatever he is, because people don't want to be honest about this stuff. All right, we're going to take a break. Coming up, how high is Baker Mayfield's ceiling as a professional football player? Joel Klatt is in the house. Haven't seen Joel in a while. Next on First Things First. Tiger Woods is back, and he's ready to take on the greatest golfers in the world at the 118th U.S. Open. Live coverage begins Thursday from Shinnecock Hills on Fox FS1 and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. And Joel Klatt is with us, making a quick stop before heading out to the U.S. Open.
That's right.
What's going on?
How
are you?
Man, you're looking good there.
You're looking great. You just got off a red eye. We should mention you're bringing it today.
Yeah.
We really appreciate the effort.
Of course.
Before we talk about some football and Baker Mayfield, talk about this weekend. What are you excited to see? Who are you excited to see?
Well, I mean, after Dustin Johnson won, and we'll get into Mayfield, but after Dustin Johnson holds out, he's back as the #1 player. You got Tiger. Really, every great player outside of Jordan Spieth has shown at least top-end form this year, outside of the Sunday with the Masters and Jordan Spieth. So that's what I'm excited for, is that you've got the big guns kind of primed and ready for this week. I think it could be an epic tournament.
A question, what type of score? We know U.S. Open, traditionally the hardest test of golf. What kind of score to par should we be looking for?
I think that they're going to go lower than what you would potentially expect. The fairways are wider than what they were back in 04 when it was last held at Shinnecock Hills. And I don't think that they're going to have the fire in the greens that they did. Remember, they had the problem with the 7th green the last time that we played this championship at Shinnecock Hills. So because of those factors, I think it might be a little lower than people expect.
I got a little excited. Now we're talking a little football. Then I get back to my other sport.
That's right.
Again.
That's right.
All right, let's discuss Baker Mayfield for a second. The former #1 overall pick is the current #2 overall quarterback on the Browns depth chart, behind Tyrod Taylor. Bit of a tough position for a player expected to eventually save the franchise. Baker, that is. But by all accounts, and by all I mean really the only one that matters, the head coach, he's doing great. Hugh Jackson gave him praise, saying he's, quote, striking balance between leading and following. So, Joel, you were really high on Baker Mayfield
Yeah.
from the beginning. What do you expect to see from him this season?
All right, so let me start with this, because there's a lot of ways you can go with this argument, but I'm going to start with this. Every single season that this guy has competed on the football field, he has surpassed my expectations for him that season. It's just what it's been. He was a walk-on at Texas Tech. He earns the starting job without being there in the spring. He gets there in August, earns the starting job, goes 6-0 before having a little bit of an injury. That surpassed my expectations. He transfers to Oklahoma, wins the starting job over Trevor Knight, who had just beaten Alabama. That surpasses my expectations. He takes Oklahoma to the playoff. This last year, you think, okay, he loses Bob Stoops, he loses D.D. Westbrook, Samaje Perine, Joe Mixon. There's no way he could have a better season than he did as a junior. And he did. I'm telling you, every single time he's given the opportunity, he surpasses expectations. So all I'm going to say is I don't expect that to change. What are those expectations? That's a great question. Is it just to start? Yeah, he's going to start. When? First month of the season, I would say. I don't think that Tyrod's going to be long for that job, because I know the type of competitor that Baker Mayfield is. So you can get to all the stats and talk about all the things he's done in one-possession games, which the NFL certainly is what is it, almost 50% of all games in the NFL are one-possession games. There was no quarterback in college football that was even in the same hemisphere as Baker Mayfield and his performance in one-possession games in the second half. 11 touchdowns, 70%. No other top quarterback had more than 4 touchdowns in those scenarios. So those are the reasons why I'm very high on him, and I would expect him to start early and surpass my expectations for this season.
I have high expectations of Baker Mayfield, even absent of where he went. I thought he was going to be a star. I was on the field at the Ohio State game, the one he planted the flag after the game. But the thing about it, he put a stake in our heart all 4 quarters. It was just the people the one they want to talk about is the one after the game.
Sure.
But it's what he did during the game that got my attention, and it was what he did before the game. And coming over, you know these games, you know these guys who are stars, so I was eyeballing them. I told Nick I was checking out the meat.
Yeah.
I was like, it's the combine. I was wanting to see.
Yeah, I mean, you want to know how thick,
Because
like,
I've been around Doug Flutie. I've been around Johnny Manziel, and he didn't have the body type. And it's not. Now, Doug Flutie, great athlete. But Baker Mayfield has a different football body. And
He's got a football body more like Russell Wilson, right?
Yes, and I believe that. And I believe that. That his overall confidence and what the football operation told me about as far as him being a force multiplier. And then we start getting into he might have a photographic memory. Now, for a lot of people to think, oh, they just saying that's hyperbole. For me, as a football player and a guy of a quarterback, if he has that type of memory and that type of recall and he can teach that to other players, man, that just breeds confidence. And I know that the wide receivers for the Cleveland Browns, I feel like for a young quarterback, I haven't seen this type of talent around a young quarterback. And for Cleveland, Tyrod Taylor is not a guy you can put back there and let him throw the ball 40 times. His arm strength and how he's going to throw the ball is not his strength. It's manage the game, not throw a lot of interceptions, but also not have a lot of attempts. If they want to get the best out of their skill, they got to put Baker in there, and I believe it happens in the first 4 games. So for me, the ceiling is the Browns win 6 games. All right? In that division, that would be a monumental rookie year for a team that's won 1 game in 2 seasons, Nick.
I would say that if I jump in real quick, everything you said, and then probably one of his best attributes on top of that is his charisma in leadership. And the fact that what you mentioned is every single place he went to with the Red Raiders, with Oklahoma, when he walked into a room and said, I own this room now. Yeah. And not in an overly confident way, but in a way that says, like, I know I have a lot to learn. I know my ceiling is high. I want to do the work. I'm willing to do the work, and I'm going to be successful at it.
Well, that's the part to me that made me want to go back and watch some of Baker's games from early in the year, that made me want to evaluate him as a pro differently. Because there is, I've told you this on and off the air, Joel, I think you are America's preeminent college football expert.
Thank you,
And
sir.
when I heard you talk this highly about him from midway point of the season to the draft process, I said, oh, because I had him pegged as this. And this is a 6'0" quarterback out of the Big 12.
System.
Like, okay. Like, yeah, so you know why he set the passer rating record? Because of course he did. I've seen this movie before.
Sure.
But you were truly adamant about his skill set. CeCe was as adamant as about this player off the field. the leadership Pied Piper stuff of anyone that I've ever heard him talk about.
Yeah.
Talking about Cam Newton in high school had a similar air about him when he was with the top players in the country. So then it's like, okay, so if he's got the leadership stuff and the numbers are unassailable, why would he not be successful? It would only be the measurables. But right now, 2 of the 5 best quarterbacks in football are under 6'1". Like Russell Wilson and Drew Brees. Now, there aren't many mediocre quarterbacks that are short, but 2 of the 5 best are his size.
And, Nick, we always, in this league, man, if you go back our great history, this is going to be our 99th season, we've always had a couple guys at least around that height.
Well, and I would argue that the NFL has never in its history been more friendly to college schematics and shorter quarterbacks. Never in its history.
Right, based on the shotgun.
And because of the assimilation that coordinators have had towards the college schematics. And we've seen it with Philadelphia. Guys, the Los Angeles Rams run a college offense. No one wants to say it, right? Because in the NFL, that's kind of like taboo. Yeah. Sean McVay runs a college offense, period. That's why Jared Goff had so much success under him. That's why they had so much success offensively. And if Hugh Jackson does that with the Browns and allows Baker to play in a similar fashion, they're going to have success. I don't disagree with you. I don't think 5-6 wins is out of the question. And I know that's crazy to people, but I'm telling you, man, this kid's something else.
And if you were Baker Mayfield, I believe that you get the added touch of having Todd Haley as your offensive coordinator, your first one. So I believe he can teach him as much football. Todd's been around the league. He's got a very, very tough style, but I believe that Baker will embrace that style. I believe that they are a winning combination there. And Todd's calling the plays.
I think about, like, blueprints, like what has gone before you. If you guys take the 9 quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls since Brad Johnson, okay, so you just go back to Brad, and then you take the 9 quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls. Some have won multiple, obviously. And then you take a deep dive into what they were in college. All of them, on average, started 35 times, won 23 games, had a completion percentage of 63%, with a touchdown-interception ratio of around 71-29. The only quarterback in the draft, in the top 4 guys, top 5 guys, that was close or past those numbers was Baker Mayfield. The only one.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of metrics that tell you that this guy's going to succeed.
And don't forget, this is a Browns team starving for leadership that has not had a guy in this team that's really stepped up to lead the team.
And that 5 wins will feel like 15
Yeah,
and 1.
that's a good point.
Oh,
all right.
yeah.
Joel, thank you so much.
Maybe 16-0.
Really appreciate it.
Like, what's going on?
We'll be watching you at the U.S. Open.
Thank you,
sure.
Jenna.
Give me a shout out. Be like, hey, what's up, Jenna?
That's right. There we go.
Definitely don't do that.
Maybe. But
During
maybe.
the commercial break.
Chris
Coming
and
up.
Jenna, not Nick.
Should LeBron be considering the Spurs this offseason? Next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First, Steven Jackson back with us again. So fiery and takey the last couple segments about LeBron. We decided we would re-rack it.
He had to go back into makeup and get his chin powdered back up.
No, I
No
like
cuts,
your
no
takes.
nice wall, no cuts.
Good, you look good. Hey, it's a shame LeBron couldn't do more for the Cavs. Said nobody ever. He crushed it the first 3 games this series and then looked mortal in Game 4 because at the end of the day, he's still human, although just barely. And also, he was playing Games 2, 3, and 4 with a broken hand. But no excuses, so factor that in. Stephen, what did you make of LeBron's approach to Game 4?
He looked a little tired. He looked a little drained. He looked like he had enough. Like, what more you want me to do? And it's the same. This the same thing I said after Game 1. If I went out there and put up 51, 8, and 8, did everything I could, and my teammates blow the game, I would be devastated too. And just from that game, he just didn't look the same. You know.
He didn't look the same after regulation, going into overtime.
Yeah, because perfect example. Y'all remember in Philadelphia when game 6 against Boston, when they had the ball 8 seconds left on the shot clock and Brad Stevenson ran down and called a timeout, then called the play for Jaylen Brown.
Not Game 6, but yes, absolutely.
Game 5, excuse me. And called the out-of-bounds play for Jaylen Brown to send the game into overtime, to win the game in overtime. T. Lue had that situation. He could have ran down there and called that timeout. It was just so much frustration for LeBron. For like, okay, I got to be the coach. I got to be the GM. I got to be the point guard. I got to be everything. It was just so much, and I kind of felt sorry for him, and I don't feel sorry for nobody. But after Game 1, I felt sorry for him because I've never seen someone expend so much energy and do so much to win a game and not get help from a supporting cast. And he wasn't the same after that to me.
Nick, 6 50-point performances, 50-point performances in the finals, right? 5 winners. LeBron, the only loser. So history and the numbers would back up what you're saying. But it's just not this series, though. Let's look at what we've went through since last year's final. Kyrie out of nowhere. LeBron probably on vacation somewhere. Kyrie wants a trade. Now, they've already decided not to bring the general manager back. So, man, I'm dealing with a new general manager. Kyrie wants out. And, man, you trading for Isaiah Thomas, who is damaged goods in the deal. He's hurt.
And they could have, remember, after they make the trade for Isaiah Thomas, he fails the physical, and they have a chance to pull it back. And LeBron goes to him and says, guys, pull it back.
Yeah.
And they end up getting a conditional extra second-round pick. Basically the same thing.
So I can't judge Game 4. To me, Game 4 is just like Game 7, but it's the totality of what this man has gone through basically through the last year. And to me, the error was totally, like, he can't do anymore. He can't coach. I believe that the timeout, I believe that JR, because everything has failed him. Ownership failed him. The general manager, management, it failed him. The head coach has failed him. His teammates have failed him. 3 different sets of teammates after a couple different trades. What else do you want him to do? And now, man, my hand is damaged. That's who I thought I saw in game number 4, Jenna.
But the other thing is this. LeBron this year at least, he's the only guy that can't have a bad game and his team win. He can't. Game 4, by his standards, was a bad game. You wanted him to shoot the ball more, I'm sure of it, right?
Yeah, go down, gun.
Go down, gun.
Empty
right?
the clip.
Empty the clip. Okay,
yeah.
so like we can, and I was at the game, so I didn't hear the broadcast, but I'm sure what was said is what is always said when LeBron passes the ball, which is Jordan gets brought up, and of course Kobe, who has no business in the discussion, but Kobe gets brought up as well.
Wow.
What? Well, not in the greatest player ever discussion. He's been eliminated from that for a long time, but. What people don't recognize is, like, we do have records of these things, right? So, like, Jordan, they're down 0-2 to the Knicks. Down 0-2 the year they win their 3rd ring. He goes 3 for 18 in Game 3, and the Bulls win the game. Kobe, how about Game 1 of the NBA Finals we pick the game of the NBA Finals. Game 1 against Philly, when he goes 7 of 22, 15 points, and they lose? Or the closeout game of the NBA Finals against Philly, when he goes 7 of 18 and they win? Or the closeout game, Game 7 against the Celtics, when he goes 6 for 24 and they win? You want to go back to Jordan? Well, Jordan would never only take 13, 14 shots. How about the year after Orlando bounces them? Mm-hmm. He's 5 of...
You just said it.
What? Go ahead.
Jordan will never take 13, 14 shots.
Oh, but except in Game 3 against Orlando, an Orlando team that had beat him the previous year. He was 5 of 14, but his team won. Or how about, we can go down the list, guys. Here's the thing. Everybody is allowed to have bad games. Everybody is. The difference is sometimes you can win with those bad games. And what I won't allow is the revisionist history of, but those guys never had bad games in these spots. Kobe in the finals against Detroit. Pick the bad game. You want the 4 of 13, Game 3? You want the 7 of 21, Game 5, when they lost the finals? Or you want the 8 of 25 sandwiched in the middle? Like, all those guys had it. No matter what Breen says, no matter what Van Gundy says, no matter what Jackson says, all those guys had it.
They've all had bad shooting nights. You're right. Mm-hmm. You can't get away from that. But they went down aggressive. They went down shooting. They went down being aggressive and leading their team. They wasn't passing the ball and trying to make the right play every time. Now, you got to respect the guy who makes the right play. I mean, LeBron's the smartest NBA player I've ever seen. No, by far, he's the smartest guy. Nobody knows the game more than LeBron. But at the same time, if I was LeBron, I'm shooting every time. I'm shooting as much as I can because obviously nobody else on the team can make a shot.
Steven, but Kobe, how about Kobe in Game 7 against the Suns? Quit. Stop shooting. Literally, stop shooting. In a series they'd been up 3-1. Am I wrong?
He quit?
Yeah, that was a message game.
It was a message to his team. He wouldn't shoot in the second half of the game. But the next year, when they get back to the playoffs, Kobe would always go down shooting, except they were down 0-1 in the series, and in the Game 2 loss, he was 5 of 13. In a series, they end up getting bounced in the first round.
And who was guarding him that series?
In the 07 Suns series. You tell me, Steven.
Nobody.
Nope.
Nobody.
Okay, and he shot the ball 13 times.
Nobody.
Right?
Nobody.
Like, the idea that these guys, they always went down gunning is not accurate. It's just not accurate.
I think seeing that how these stars, also how they got help, it was very evident to me in this series of Steph Curry. What game did he have 11 points?
Yeah, the game 3.
Oh, they won that game. Now, LeBron, that stat line, 11 points. Nick, what was the 2009? Was the last time LeBron had scored 11 points in an NBA game and had won. So in game number 4, LeBron doesn't have the luxury of having, I'm not going to say a bad game. He doesn't have the luxury of
not
having.
showing up.
I mean, he does not have that luxury in Cleveland, and we just have to get used to this. If we're going to talk about LeBron, you have to realize it's not going to be fair. Like, so any of the conversations, typically, and how he is scrutinized, it typically is not fair to him.
Yeah, I mean, but that's every superstar. You know, look how they killed KD. They killed Kobe. They killed Jordan, too. Like, if you're a star, it's going to happen. And LeBron, like you said, he can never do enough. To a lot of people. To me, as a person, he's done more than enough. And, you know, and you can never just put the total blame on him. But at the same time, you know, it's going to always be people on the outside wanting him to do more because his team didn't win. And as a player, I would like to see him go down way more aggressive than he did.
You wouldn't?
I think it's, with respect to Steven, who knows how much I love him and have him on the show, I think it is crazy that we are in year 15 of a guy who, worst case scenario, is the 3rd greatest basketball player ever, almost assuredly is 1st or 2nd, and we are still saying he should play differently. The way he's played up to this point, which is the way he played in high school, he had the same line in high school he had his 2nd year in the league, the way he played to the 4 MVPs, the way he played to what you can argue is the greatest statistical career ever, we should change it. We should adjust it. He should be more like an inferior player in Kobe Bryant. He should be more like a less efficient player and pick your guy. I think it's insane. I think it'd be saying, hey, Kevin Durant, here's what I need from you, man. I need from you to play starting center every night because you're 7-1, you should do it. No, the way KD plays has worked for him. The way LeBron plays has worked for him. The idea that he's all of a sudden going to change to some Mamba mentality.
But some would say they're 3-6 in the finals. Maybe at some point you just shift it ever so slightly to maneuver your way through and get yourself the points when you know no one else is going to get.
And that's what I think you're wrong. I don't think people saying he needs to just switch to, expecting him to switch to Kobe or Jordan. I don't think people saying that. You know, LeBron, to me, I even hate the comparison to Jordan and Kobe. LeBron is in his own category in my mind. You know, he's the best all-around player we've ever seen, the smartest basketball player I have ever seen. He is in his own category. But one thing you do see as stars in the past, when you talk about Michael Jordan and when they do talk about him as Kobe, these guys were real killers on the court. They went hard every game, all game.
But also, you know what? I know both of them guys. Both of them, when they played with bad teammates, they were teammate killers too. They couldn't have gotten because they were not those type of teammates. So LeBron James, to his credit, in this team, the bookends, the first Cavs team and this team, 2 of the worst teams that we have ever seen go to the final. And because LeBron has been unselfish, that's the only reason why those teammates are empowered enough to get to the finals. Jordan couldn't have got those. Kobe couldn't have gotten that type of talent.
Jordan was on a bad team. He took 8 shots in Game 5 in conference finals against the Pistons because he knew they couldn't win. When Kobe was on a bad team, he stopped taking shots in the second half. LeBron's on a bad team only gets him to the NBA Finals.
So many numbers over there. There's a lot of numbers.
And the numbers don't mean that much as Nick making it sound. Trust me. They just in the way.
Back.
They just in the way.